Okay, now let's take a shot at steps 2, 3, and 4 in the Configure Additional LAN Segments lab. As in the first lab, we're going to do maintenance on the configuration of the router firewall, and we're going to do so from the admin machine. I'll try to make it as big as I can to help the video image. Okay, there we go. You've already done step 1, in which you unpacked and started the machines. So first we're going to open Firefox on the admin machine. And we're going to go to the address, IP address of the interface for the router. Now, in this case, it's showing history because I've been practicing, but it may not show that history for you. There it opens up, and I enter admin and pfSense, like the name of the software up here. Again, still a terrible password to use in production, but since this is not a real production firewall and it's a lab, it's easier to use the simple password. And we're going to sign in. And you can save or not save, it doesn't matter. And we agree that this is not commercial, and thank you. Okay. You may notice, by the way, that over here, pfSense is now showing that someone has logged in and is controlling and is preparing to reconfigure this machine. It's a good thing that pfSense keeps logs of that sort of activity. All right. The first thing we're going to do is tell pfSense that there are 2 more network segments for it to manage. We're going to use this 3-line menu up here. They often call this a hamburger menu. I'm going to click that, and we're going to go to Interfaces, and we'll go to Assignments. You may recall that previously there are 4 network cards in our virtual machine, our virtual router machine, but only 2 of them are assigned to network segments at present. So we're going to click Add to add another one, which it calls OPT1. We're going to click Add again to add another one, which it's going to call OPT2. And then we're going to click Save. And what we've now done is told pfSense that it can use all 4 of those network cards for managed network segments. All right, now we're going to set up DHCP for the DMZ network, DMZ network segment. We're going to make that line up with the what pfSense first called OPT1, probably for optional or something, OPT1. I don't know what OPT stands for. Here we go, OPT1, and it opens up an interface. Now, you may notice as you go along that sometimes the interface looks like this, and other times the interface will show all the options here. Either should work fine. And in this case, we are on the Interfaces menu for the OPT1 interface. And so we're going to enable the interface. It wasn't before. We're going to give it a name, DMZ. Looking over to my instructions, by the way, I hope you are also following along in the instructions because they have lots of really important and useful information. Then I'm turning on static IPv4 as the configuration type. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to tell it the IP address range to use. When we've done DHCP ranges, we often put in a beginning and an ending address. We're going to do it differently this time. We tell it the beginning address, 10.0.2.1. The LAN segment we configured for was 1.1. But we're going to tell it to freeze the first 24 bits of the address and assign all of that network space to this LAN segment. We're not going to go deeply into that, but by freezing the first 24, that leaves us 1 more octet after this to use for holding IP addresses. And what this really means is that this particular router is going to handle all the 10.0.2 machines. And we click Save, and it says, hey, you've changed the configuration. You need to save it. You need to apply the changes for it to take effect. So we do Apply Changes, and you can see up here it's running. And boom, the changes have been successfully applied. Excellent. I refer you to the instructions that talk some understanding there about what we just did. Now we're going to configure DHCP for this segment because indeed devices may need to get IP addresses. It's possible we wouldn't want to let a dynamic pool exist and only do hard-coded IP addresses. I'm not sure, but again, that's not the point of this exercise. So we are going to go ahead and configure DHCP server, and we're going to go to the DMZ segment instead of the LAN segment. And we're going to say, yes, you can hand out IP addresses to machines on this segment through your DHCP server. So we click that to yes. Then we're going to tell it the range. And this time we use the more familiar range. We say 10.0.2.3, leaving 1 and 2 for the interface for the network and some other purposes, through 10.0.2.99. So in this case, anything above 99 we would reserve for static IP addresses. Again, I'm not suggesting this is the ideal way to configure every network. It's just a way to establish what our DHCP pool for new devices that log in and ask for an IP address. And then we go all the way to the bottom and click Save. And in this case, it applied them successfully. I'm not sure of the exact details. Maybe since nobody was on it yet, we didn't need to do a separate apply step. At any rate, we didn't have to, but if we could have needed to apply, and then it would have shown up here, something to watch for. All right, so that took care of our DMZ network. Now we're going to configure the exact same things for the SecureNet segment. So again, here we're going to click on this, and we're going to go to Interfaces. And you can see now that that interface that was OPT1 has become OPT2. Or I'm sorry, that has become DMZ. That's because we renamed OPT1 to DMZ. Now we are going to work on OPT2. So we're going to click on that one. And this should look very familiar. We're going to do just the same steps. We're going to enable the interface. We're going to call it SecureNet. We're going to say that it has a static IPv4 address. We're going to assign it 10.0.3.1 as its starting address for the range. And again, we're going to tell it to freeze only the first 24 bits of the network address. And we're going to save. Again, because we've applied this, we need to apply changes so that the router knows to put the .3 messages on this network segment, just like it'll put the .2 messages on the DMZ segment and the .1 messages on the OfficeNet segment. Okay, looks like I spelled it right. Looking good. Great. So now you have completed steps 2, 3, and 4. Let's talk about virtual machines for just a moment. One of the great things about virtual machines is that you can save a picture of them, and when you restart them, they come up to be exactly where they were before. This is much like why we're doing with this whole lab in virtual machines, is because we can have every time a student logs back in, it goes back to the original virtual machines that we unpack so you get a reliable experience. Let's set it up so that if we continue on with this lab and we mess up somewhere and we want to come back to just the way it is now, let's take a snapshot of our machine. That's not too hard. The first thing of the router, by the way, This machine over here is just an admin machine. It doesn't really do anything. So using a snapshot for it's not important. But this router, we've now reconfigured with additional segments. So the first thing we want to do is shut the machine down. There's a number of ways we could do that. We could do it from the command line here somehow. That would be one way to do it. What we're going to do though here is we're going to tell VirtualBox to send the machine a shutdown signal. So pfSense goes, oh, you want me to shut down? Okay, I'll shut down the machine. And it starts shutting it down. And it takes some time. You can imagine there's all kinds of files open. Some of them are saved to disk, some are not. They may probably make backup copies to keep things going. They have buffers, a number of things that have to happen. So now it's completely shut down. I'm going to get this out of the way and go back to our VirtualBox Manager interface again. And we're going to take a picture of this machine. We're going to make a snapshot. There's a couple ways you can do it. We can click on it. We can go to Machine and Tools and Snapshots. We could have also gotten here by clicking here and going to Snapshots, probably some other ways. Once we're on this Snapshot tab, the Snapshot menu, then we can do this thing called Take. And we can give it a name after step 4, for example. Okay. And now we have a picture of this. So if we start this back up later and we mess it up, we can come back and restart it right from here. Okay, so now you've completed steps 2 through 4.